University of Iowa, 2010. University of Oregon, 2017. University of Maryland, 2018. And University of Houston, 2019. What do you think all these tragic events have in common? Well, if you answered military style trainings that were designed to develop the mentally toughest teams, and allegedly those athletes were supervised by strength and conditioning coaches, then unfortunately you were right. In Iowa, we had cases of football players hospitalized with rhabdo, off-season and football. In Oregon, again, off-season football, supervised by strength and conditioning coach, hospitalization of athletes. This event started again the debate on top of everything else about certification of strength and conditioning coaches, and if the field is regulated enough or not. And the author of this very popular article went on to say that off season equals death season, and that the strength and conditioning world appears to be so unregulated that looks like the athletic training world 30 years ago. Unfortunately, the University of Maryland had a catastrophic event of the death of a football student athlete during off season. And in the University of Houston, now in this case, again, several cases of rhabdo. However, we have soccer and we have female student athletes. Hello, everybody. My name is Andreas Tamaris. I am an associate professor in the Department of Exercise and Nutrition Sciences in the State University of New York at Plattsburgh. And I am so honored to be among you today and be one of the magnificent presenters for the ACSM Greater New York virtual fall meeting. I've been an ACSM member since, who knows, forever. And for the past years, I've been actively engaged with the Greater New York ACSM chapter. The past two, on top of everything, I am a member of the research committee. Now, I'm very happy to talk to you today, or to talk with you today, about two passions of mine: mental toughness and strength and conditioning. I've been a strength and conditioning coach for many years. I've coached individual athletes and professional teams in Europe. I've also coached in Big 12 in the US. And lately, my research interest is mental toughness and strength and conditioning and how they come together there. Hopefully, my two first slides caught your attention, because there's a huge issue. It's very, very hot. It's a very hot topic. If there are any effective and evidence-based, empirically based interventions for the strength and conditioning coaches to train mental toughness. All right, usually in my presentations, I have this slide in the beginning of my slideshows. So if you want to log out later on, this is pretty much what I'm going to try to cover and prove today. Okay, so I'm going to try to prove that mental toughness is very popular among us, the strength and conditioning coaches. However, we have a big issue. On average, we don't really know how to define it. And on average, again, we don't really know how to measure it and we don't measure it. However, we do think that we train it. The interventions that are out there, the evidence-based interventions, are not of high quality, and we'll see um, why is that important as well. There's no sufficient evidence to connect the strength and conditioning coaches with generalized, military style training. And education is needed. More education is needed for the strength and conditioning coaches concerning mental toughness training. And I guess that's why we're here today. Before I move any further, I have to let you know that I am certified by NSCA as a strength and conditioning specialist. And also, I'm affiliated with the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association, as I am a member of the executive committee that writes the questions for the annual exam. Now, before I move any further, I would like to make a little bit of an introduction concerning sports psych and mental toughness and strength and conditioning. Now, as coaches, not only as strength coaches, but as any kind of coach, our goal is to train our athletes, to facilitate our athletes in a way that they can reach their optimal performance at the right times, okay? Now, as you know, it's not only about the physiological factors. There are other factors that play important roles in that process. Lately, there has been an increased awareness and consideration of the psychological factors. Among them, mental toughness has been very, very popular. The research and the training of mental toughness is in its relative infancy. It has been very popular since the 80s. Most of the research has been conducted the past 2 to 3 decades. Now, why do we care about mental toughness that much? Well, we have enough evidence to associate mental toughness and high performance in a variety of contexts. You can see occupation, education, the military, and of course, what we are mostly interested in, sports. All right. Now, what's the common ground between all these different environments? Well, if you really look at them, if you really pay attention, all of them have to do with stress and competition. All these environments are stressful and competitive. And that's where mental toughness comes in and really has a very important role towards performance. Now, this is a huge table, right? And my goal now here is not to even attempt to tell you to read it, right? My goal here is dual. It's first of all to show you that there are many, many definitions of mental toughness. And also, we will use that information later on as we go on. As you understand, a psychological construct is not tangible, right? And a lot of times, researchers try to define it. Unfortunately, there's a lot of ambiguity still concerning the definition of mental toughness, which is a huge issue because it creates other issues, as you may understand, in measurement and also in training. Now, as I said, there's no consensus. And In theoretical constructs, in order to define something, we usually we have to use a conceptualization model. In mental toughness, we've used unidimensional, multidimensional concepts. In the unidimensional ones, all the key dimensions have some common ground and they assimilate over time and they become one. In the multidimensional constructs, we have separate, distinct dimensions or components. Now, I'm sharing here, if somebody wants to dig deeper, I'm sharing the most popular mental toughness definitions, and I also want to use them as examples of a multidimensional, as a product of multidimensional and unidimensional conceptualizations. I know I said there's no consensus. Lately, though, there is progress. There is progress towards a finer and deeper definition of mental toughness. In general, no matter what model we have used or which one from that table you prefer, mental toughness, you will see that is a collection of dimensions, qualities, attributes that allow the athlete to face adversity and overcome adversity towards performance, right? Okay, so here there's another huge table. And again, I don't want you to know any names or years or acronyms. However, I have, again, a dual goal. And first of all, I want to show you the quantity of instruments that we have out there. And we'll use, again, that information when we talk about strength coaches and measuring mental toughness. Now, as you can see, in psychology, we have, again, theoretical constructs. So when we're trying to measure a theoretical construct, because it's not something tangible, we usually develop instruments, inventories, or questionnaires, okay? Now, we talked about a plethora of definition. So when you have a lot of definition, guess what happens? You have a lot of instruments. So we ended up with all these instruments, and the most popular one is the MTQ-48, right? Although there's a lot of debate about that questionnaire being psychometrically sound or not. Very popular also is MTI, that's the one I am using from Gucciardi. SMTQ is very popular. PPI is very popular all the way up top. That's from Lur, who's the one who coined the term mental toughness in the 80s. And lastly, we have MTQ-18, which is a shorter version of MTQ-48. Now, I know we talked a little bit about theory and about the theoretical background of the definition and the measurement of the construct, but I think it will be very helpful as we move now to the more important things of this presentation. The motor strength and conditioning coach is considered a performer. And he or she has to be seen as a multidimensional entity since their responsibilities keep expanding. So we see the strength coach now, he has to deal with a lot of key stakeholders, players, other coaches, athletic directors, athletic trainers, physical therapists, dietitians, psychologists, parents maybe, significant others, fans, media reporters. I could keep going. A lot of times though, the interest of each of those groups may be different, and sometimes they can be even conflicting, okay? So that makes the job of the strength and conditioning coach even more complicated. However, that adds on the value on the strength and conditioning coach on developing those athletes and how much he or she can actually affect the environment, okay? Which is a lot. For our presentation, we're talking about developing the environment for increasing mental toughness levels on their athletes. When you look at the literature, though, there's a gap. There's very limited research concerning coaches in general mental toughness, and extremely limited when it comes to strength and conditioning and mental toughness training. Now, me being me, I love strength and conditioning. I think they're so important, and our role is so undervalued. And I really, side note, don't appreciate the media trying to discredit us every time something bad happens. Now, it didn't make sense to me that there was no research concerning mental toughness and strength and conditioning. Why? So key there was, if you really think about it, and if we think about the collegiate level, right, which is the environment where like a majority of the strength and conditioning coaches will try to find a job, you know, the strength and conditioning coaches spend a lot of time with their athletes. And for example, in D1, in Division 1, in NCAA, you know that there are bylaws. And based on those bylaws, the strength and conditioning coaches spend the most countable hours than any other coach in the team, even the head coach. Now, if you take that under consideration, and then you add all these events and all that media backlash that I tried to present to you in the first two slides, then it didn't make sense to me why we didn't have enough evidence. So I turned my focus and I chose to research towards that. Let's see what we have found so far. All right, that was one of the very first papers that we published. That was in 2018. And it was kind of a pilot study to see where we are and, you know, move from there, go from there. Based on the title of the article, I'm guessing you can understand that the results were not very encouraging. This was about we recruited strength and conditioning coaches, D1, Big 12 strength and conditioning coaches for women's basketball. So I was really happy that I was given access to these kind of coaches, and it was a mixed method design. We collect information through questionnaires and interviews. And what we ended up was that pretty much we confirmed what we knew from sport coaches, that strength and conditioning coaches really love mental toughness. They think it's very valuable, okay? However, they don't really know what it is, okay? Which is again the same that we had some preliminary data concerning sport coaches. Now, based on everything in that project, we ended up with future research recommendation, which had to do with three things: definition, measurement, and training. And you'll see how we're going to use that in a little bit. All right, this is, it was published a couple of months ago. It took us more than 5 years to actually publish this piece. And as you can see, it's an interinstitutional and actually international team of experts coming together, trying to, as we saw here, research one of those three, and especially the third one, the implementation, the training issue. Why did we start from there? Well, I go to all these, I'm a strength coach, okay? And I consider myself still a strength coach, and I go to all these conferences and I speak, I present, and then I actually talk with the coaches. And the strength and conditioning coach is a practitioner. So of course they will really be interested in definition, then in measurement, but mostly, and most of all, they will be interested in implementation, in training. So they will ask me, okay, yeah, we love it. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, we loved it. We love your presentation. But we have a question. I'm like, okay, what is it? What should we do? And I wasn't able to answer that question because I didn't really know. And that was the key question, of course. That's a key question for a practitioner. So me going there to all these conferences and me talking to all these strength and conditioning coaches, I would ask them, tell me what you want me to research, and I'll come back. I'll come back and share all that information. So that was the main reason we started from training, and we did a review and meta-analysis. Okay, so of course we followed the Prisma guidelines. As you can see, the last search was on November 22nd, 2019. We started with more than 1,400 hits, and then we ended up with 12 articles in the review and 10 articles in the meta-analysis. First comment, not a lot of articles included. So not a lot of interventional research out there, okay? That is an issue to consider by itself. So we don't have a lot of evidence-based interventions that have to do with mental toughness, okay? That's one. Now, here, of course, we try to figure out to offer some kind of advice concerning best practices. Okay, that was the issue. And as you can see, with the green underlying with the green color over there, we did find a large effect size in the meta-analysis. So the D was 0.8, and I'm not going to go into stats right now, but it was a large effect size. However, when we looked in between the lines and we're trying to see what they actually did, as you can see, we found a lot, like high, moderate or high bias, okay? Which means that the research was not of high quality. So we ended up trying to answer that question, what should I do? What should I do? To the coach by telling them, well, I can't really tell you. I can't really tell you because we did find some research out there and the effect size was large, but the quality of the research was not high. So we ended up advising the coaches by telling them to look, if you are going to use something, please be cautious. Of course, that has its own value. Remember that conclusion as we move forward, please. And of course, as I said here, as you can see, the moderate risk, high risk of bias, we reported all the issues, the methodological issues that we had found. And that's a huge table. Again, I don't want you to read it. I don't want to communicate all that information that's in the article, and that's open access for whoever wants to read it. You can see on the left side, we have the less rigorous and the more rigorous kind of research design, starting from single subject designs all the way to CIS, controlled intervention studies. One thing I want you to see here, because we are going to use it later on, is that when we found those 10 papers to the meta-analysis, most of them use psychological intervention. Some of them use psychological plus physical interventions. And there was only one project that used physical intervention. And actually that project was about a competitive season. They didn't really share what they did. So this is very important as we move forward. Also, side note, if you ever want to participate, if you are a mental toughness enthusiast, as I am, and you're a strength coach and you want us to do some kind of research together, please consider sharing your protocols, because otherwise we cannot replicate. Even if it worked, we don't have enough information to tell other people what you did, so they can imitate what you did and try to see if it works in context or not. Okay, that's a side note. All right, so then I thought about keep digging. And as I was thinking about it, I thought about the master strength and conditioning coaches. And if you don't know what an MSCC is, they are uh, members of the Collegiate Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association, and they have been actively coaching for at least 12 years. So having the title of MSCC is considered one of the highest honors in the field, as it represents longevity and a lot of experience. So I was like, maybe I should go and ask the best of the best or some of the best out there. And I was blessed again to be given access to this elite subgroup of strength and conditioning coaches. And we explored, as you will see, the three main issues: conceptualization, measurement, and training, because that was the preliminary data we had before, and that was the information I was receiving from the strength and conditioning coaches when I would talk to them. Guess what we found again? That they really like it, they really value it. They don't know what it is. And I just told you that there are not any real physical protocols, like straight physical protocols out there, right? Evidence-based. So they would use physical protocols because it makes sense. That's what they know, physical protocols. But because they're not evidence-based, they're anecdotally based. And we all know we're not condemning anecdotally based protocols, especially in the profession of a coach. There's a lot of trial and error, right? But we all know that there's a lot of value or more value in the evidence-based protocols. So they use anecdotally based protocols, physical protocols, and on top of everything, they rarely assess the effectiveness of those protocols. They don't know there are instruments out there, and they do not use those instruments. Okay, what do they do? That's another conversation for another presentation, but they value it. They don't know what it is. They train it based on physical, anecdotally based protocols, and they don't assess the effectiveness of those protocols. So we ended up pretty much suggesting that we may have an issue here. So we need to educate the strength and conditioning coaches, because if the most experienced among them have these issues, what happens with the ones that just started? Right? So we were kind of debating on, do we have an issue here? Is this the reason we have all these issues with mental toughness training? Because strength coaches are using anecdotally based physical protocols that nobody has really checked if they're working or not. And it's not that they're not only effective, they may be unsafe too. So we reached that point, and I hope you follow the train of my thought and how we ended up here, because our next step was to see if they're actually incorporating military style training. And I cannot really share this information because it's brand new. But what I can tell you and what I can reassure you is that, yes, mostly it happens in football. Yes, mostly it happens during off season. But, and there's a huge but here, right? Less than 1 out of 4 of the strength and conditioning coaches that we asked actually incorporates military style training. Okay, I cannot share more information about that. However, I can tell you that it's not popular at all. Therefore, why are we getting all that backlash from media? Why? it doesn't appear to be fair enough. Okay, something else going on, and that's why we keep investigating. And this is the next article we're going to publish, and we're going to give you more information even about what they mean when they say physical protocol / military style training. And as we're reaching the end of this presentation, I hope I proved my points that strength and conditioning, that in strength and conditioning, mental toughness is very popular, although we don't know how to define it nor measure it. We are trying to train it using physical, anecdotally based protocols, but we are not into military style training, okay? There is a lot of research to happen, and this is where I need your help as strength and conditioning coaches. I know we all need the solutions, we all like the solutions, but we also need to be involved in these kind of processes and in these research projects, because again, there are not a lot of evidence-based protocols, and when it comes to physical protocols, there's pretty much nothing out there. So with COVID and everything, a lot of our projects just, stopped. So hopefully we'll be able to continue doing research with strength and conditioning coaches. If you are interested, please let me know. I will be more than happy to talk about the details. And I promise you that you're not going to do anything that will jeopardize your job. We just need some more information, because we need to move the field forward concerning mental toughness training. That's all from me. Of course, I want to thank all the coaches that have given me access to their weight lifting rooms and their data, and all the student athletes and students that have helped me throughout all this process. And of course, I want to thank Dr. Murphy, the president of the Greater New York ACSM chapter, and the members of the committee for giving me this opportunity to share all this information with you. Before I go, I need to acknowledge a couple of people. Pete, we've been doing research a lot of years now, and he's the professor and dean of exercise science in Ole Miss. Grant is an associate professor and chair of his department at Baylor, one of the best psychometricians in the country. Richard, he's a research associate in the Human Flourishing Program at Harvard University. And Zach is an assistant professor, exercise science, sport and exercise science, and lab director at Barry University in Florida. I want to thank all of them for being a part of this journey. I want to thank you for even virtually being here, for watching this video, for participating. I will answer all questions you may have. You can also email me. You can see my email address right there, and also my IG account, which is my professional account. We can connect through that. Thank you so much for everything. I hope you guys have a good one. Bye-bye.